When we think about Middle-earth, we often think of Frodo's courage, Aragorn's kingship, or Gandalf's wisdom. But long before hobbits or even Gondor existed, the elves shaped the fate of Arda in ways so profound that even the great tale from the Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings carries this imprint. Today, we're exploring the 10 most influential elves in Tolkien's legendarium from my perspective. These are the princes and the queens and the heroes and even the flawed rebels, whose choices defined the history of Middle-earth across thousands of years. A quick disclaimer before I get started, I'd like to say that these are in no particular order. They are just 10 of the most influential elves in my opinion. I'm going to start with Fëanor. Fëanor was the greatest of the Noldor in both brilliance and destructive influence. Born the son of Finwë, the High King of the Noldor, his spirit burned hotter and fiercer than any other elf. His skills as a craftsman were unmatched. He created the Palantiri, those seeing stones later used by Gondor, and most famously, the Silmarils. These 3 jewels contain the unmarred light of the 2 trees of Valinor, making them objects of unsuppressed beauty and power. Not even the Valar could replicate them. But Fëanor's genius was inseparable from his pride. When Morgoth coveted and stole the Silmarils after destroying the 2 trees, Fëanor swore the terrible oath of Fëanor, binding himself and his 7 sons to recover the jewels at any cost. That oath led to the exile of the Noldor, the kinslaying of Alqualondë, where elves slew elves from ships, and centuries of war in Beleriand. Fëanor's rebellion introduced death, blood, and kin strife into the story of the elves, on a scale previously unimaginable. Though he died early in the wars against Morgoth, slain whilst recklessly charging against the Balrogs, Fëanor's shadow looms over the entire First Age. His oath drove his sons to commit further kinslayings, shattered alliances, and ultimately led to the ruin of the Noldor in Middle-earth. If influence means shaping the destiny of countless lives, even through tragedy, then Fëanor's legacy is unparalleled. He is both the archetype of elven brilliance and the warning about unchecked pride. Next I have Thingol, also known as Thingol. Thingol was one of 3 original leaders of the elves who travelled to Valinor. Yet unlike his brethren, Thingol chose to remain in Middle-earth after falling in love with Melian, a Mire spirit of the Valar. Their union was unique, producing Lúthien, a very child of both elf and Mire. Together, Thingol and Melian built Doriath, one of the mightiest realms in the First Age, and protected by the Girdle of Melian, an enchantment that no enemy could breach without her consent. As King of Doriath, Thingol wielded enormous influence, but also displayed the darker side of elven pride. His disdain for men created tensions, yet his love for his daughter set in motion one of the greatest tales of all time. When Beren, a mortal man, sought to marry Lúthien, Thingol demanded a bride price that he thought impossible, a Silmaril from Morgoth's crown. This challenge launched Beren and Lúthien's legendary quest, forever entwining the fates of elves and men. Later, Thingol's downfall came through greed. He commissioned dwarves to reforge the Nolgrimir, a dwarven necklace, to hold the Silmaril, recovered by Beren and Lúthien. But when disputes arose over its ownership, Thingol's arrogance and insults led the dwarves to slay him in his own halls, sparking the sack of Doriath and the scattering of his people. Thingol's reign illustrates both the majesty and the fragility of elven kingship. He fathered legends, but his pride doomed his kingdom. Next we have Galadriel. Galadriel is one of the most enduring figures in Tolkien's world, spanning from the light of the 2 trees to the twilight of the Third Age. A granddaughter of Finwë, she was one of the leaders who crossed into exile, though she did not take part in the worst crimes of the Noldor. Unlike many of her kin, she endured. She became Lady of Lothlorien, ruling beside Celeborn, and wielded the Ring of Power Nenya, which preserved her realm against decay and darkness. What makes Galadriel so influential is not just her power, but her growth. Once proud and ambitious, she came to embody wisdom and restraint. Her role in the War of the Rings was pivotal. She hosted the Fellowship, offered Frodo counsel, and resisted the greatest temptation of all when he offered her the One Ring. Had she accepted, she would have become a queen, beautiful and terrible as the dawn. Yet she chose humility, ensuring Sauron's defeat. Her influence extended through her gifts. The Vial of Galadriel gave Frodo and Sam light in Mordor's darkness. Her counsel strengthened Aragorn, Gimli and Frodo alike. Galadriel's story is one of redemption. She began as a rebel against the Valar, but ended as the wisest of the Eldar. Next we have Elrond Half-Elven. Elrond's significance lies in his role as both a healer and a unifier. Born of extraordinary heritage, he was descended of both elves and men, with blood ties to Lúthien and Erendil. Unlike his brother Elros, who chose mortality and became the first king of Númenor, Elrond chose the life of the Eldar. As Lord of Rivendell, he preserved ancient knowledge and provided sanctuary for over 3,000 years. Elrond was entrusted with Vilya, the most powerful of the 3 elven rings. With it, he kept Rivendell safe and maintained it as a bastion of wisdom against Sauron's growing powers. His greatest moments came with the Council of Elrond, where he unified hobbits, men, dwarves, and elves in a common cause, leading to the creation of the Fellowship. Without Elrond's leadership and foresight, the quest to destroy the ring would never have begun. His family's influence also bridges ages. Through his brother Elros came the line of Númenor, and through his daughter Arwen and her love for Aragorn, the kingship of men was restored. Elrond represents both memory and continuity, the keeper of the past and the guide into the future. Next up, I have Lúthien to Nuviel. Lúthien's story is perhaps the most beloved in Tolkien's entire legendarium. The daughter of Thingol and Melian, she was the most beautiful and powerful elf maid to ever live. Her love for the mortal man Beren transcended all boundaries, even defying her father and Morgoth himself. Her deeds are extraordinary. When Beren was captured, Lúthien defied the guards of Sauron, using her song to weave enchantments that overcame even the greatest of foes. She entered Angbad, the fortress of Morgoth, and with her voice lulled the Dark Lord himself into a slumber. She and Beren then cut a Silmaril from Morgoth's crown, achieving what no host of elves or men had ever accomplished. Her love was so strong that when Beren died, she journeyed to Mandos, the doomsman of the Valar, and sang for him. No one had ever moved Mandos to pity, yet Lúthien's song did. She was allowed to return to life with Beren, choosing mortality so that they could be together. Through their descendants came Elrond, Arwen, and Aragorn. Lúthien's courage and love reshaped the destiny of elves and men alike, and her story is echoed in Arwen's choices at the end of The Lord of the Rings. Next we have Gil-Galad. As the last High King of the Noldor, Gil-Galad carried the weight of his people's legacy on his shoulders. In the Second Age, as Sauron rose in power, Gil-Galad stood as one of the few capable leaders who could unite elves and men against the darkness. He wielded the spear Aglos and once held both Vilya and Narya, which he entrusted to Elrond and Círdan. His crowning achievement was the last war of elves and men, a massive coalition that besieged Mordor for years. In the final battle, Gil-Galad and Elendil faced Sauron himself. Though both fell, their sacrifice allowed Isildur to cut the One Ring from Sauron's hand, ending his reign of terror for an age. Gil-Galad's death marked the end of the High Kings, but his leadership ensured that hope survived. Gil-Galad's influence endures not only through victory in battle, but through the alliance that he forged. He was the last great king of the Noldor, a reminder of what elves could achieve when united, even as their age waned. Next, I have Finrod Felagund. Finrod, king of Nargothrond, was renowned for his wisdom, nobility, and compassion. Unlike many of the Noldor, he saw the race of men as allies rather than rivals. When the House of Beor came into Beleriand, Finrod welcomed them, gifting them lands and forging a bond of loyalty that would change the fate of both races. His people loved him dearly, and his realm of Nargothrond was one of the most glorious of the Elven kingdoms. His loyalty was tested through an oath sworn to Barahir, father of Beren. When Beren sought to marry Lúthien, Finrod honoured his pledge, accompanying him on the perilous quest. Captured by Sauron, Finrod fought the Dark Lord in battle of song and spells, ultimately losing but showing the immense power of elven will. In captivity, he gave his life to save Beren, slain by a wolf in Sauron's dungeons. Finrod's sacrifice echoes through history. By choosing loyalty over safety, he ensured Beren's quest could succeed, setting the stage for Lúthien's defiance of Morgoth. His compassion towards men laid the foundation for the future union of elves and men through Eärendil, Elrond, and Aragorn. Next, I have Círdan the Shipwright. Círdan is a quiet guardian of Middle-earth's history. One of the eldest elves, he witnessed the awakening of his people and survived through every age. A master of the Grey Havens, he preserved the last refuge of the elves in Middle-earth and oversaw the ships that bore them back to Valinor. Whilst kings and warriors fell, Círdan endured steady and watchful. His greatest act of wisdom was his stewardship of Narya, the Ring of Fire. Though entrusted to him, he perceived that Gandalf would be the one to wield it more effectively. By gifting the ring to the wizard upon his arrival, Círdan empowered Gandalf to inspire courage and resistance across Middle-earth. Few acts of foresight have such lasting consequences for the War of the Ring. Círdan remained to the very end, witnessing the departure of the ring-bearers and finally sailing west himself. His role was never to seek glory, but to be a safeguard of hope. He's perhaps the most underrated elf in Tolkien's world, and quite yet an indispensable pillar of endurance. Next, we have Glorfindel. Glorfindel's tale is one of death and rebirth. In the First Age, he was Lord of Gondolin, and when the hidden city fell, he fought valiantly to defend its escapees. His final act was to duel with a Balrog, where he sacrificed his life to ensure that Tuatha, Idril, and their son Eärendil could escape. This act directly preserved the line that would later save the world. Remarkably, Glorfindel was re-embodied by the Valar and returned to Middle-earth in the Second Age, a rare honour given only to the most heroic. He became a great warrior once more, aiding in the wars against Sauron and lending his might to the free peoples. In The Lord of the Rings, his power was evident. When Frodo was hunted by the Nazgûl, it was Glorfindel whose presence struck fear into them and they fled. Though often overshadowed by the others in this narrative, Glorfindel embodies the elven spirit of resilience. He is a living reminder that sacrifice is never forgotten and that heroes may return when they are most needed. Finally, we have Idril Celebrimbor. Idril, daughter of King Turgon of Gondolin, might not seem as prominent as warriors or kings, but her foresight was vital. She distrusted Maeglin, her cousin who coveted her, and sensed the doom that hung over Gondolin. Quietly, she had a secret escape tunnel built, preparing for the day when disaster would strike. When Gondolin fell to Morgoth's armies, Idril's preparations saved countless lives, including her husband Tuatha and their son Eärendil the Mariner. Through her wisdom and courage, the line of Eärendil was preserved. Eärendil would later voyage to Valinor, pledging with the Valar to intervene, which led to Morgoth's final defeat in the War of Wrath. Idril's marriage to Tuatha would unite elves and men, a union that would echo through their descendants, Elrond, Elros, and ultimately Aragorn. Idril shows that influence does not always come from battle. Sometimes it comes from foresight, wisdom, and the quiet courage to prepare for the worst. From Fëanor's fiery brilliance to Galadriel's quiet wisdom, from Lúthien's fearless love and Círdan's patient guardianship, the Elves of Tolkien's legendarium shaped the destiny of Middle-earth in ways that cannot be overstated. They were flawed, often prideful, yet also noble and heroic. Which of these elves do you think had the greatest impact on the history of Arda? Was it Fëanor, whose creations and oaths sparked the Age of War, or Lúthien, who proved that even in the greatest darkness could be defied through love? Let me know in the comments down below. In the description, you will find a link to my other channel, so if you enjoy Warhammer content, which I can assume you do if you watch my Friday videos, then might recommend having a look at that. It's all about Warhammer, and at the moment we are building, painting, and we'll soon be battling our armies against each other, so if that sounds something you'll be into, then please have a look at that. Anyway, that'll be it from me today. Hope you have a wonderful day, or night, wherever you are in the world. And as always, bye for now, guys.